For some who may not remember him, Lee Atwater was a campaign manager of George Bush 41 and was a dirty tricks guy coming out of the Nixon era. And actually, when our current president was first getting his feet wet in politics, Lee Atwater was who he bonded with. He bonded on the level of dirty tricks, and he bonded on the level of enforcing loyalty in the campaigns. But then, and I haven't seen the documentary, but it sounds fascinating, and he's a fascinating character, Lee Atwater, because he got a brain tumor. And as he became progressively more ill, he recanted some of his techniques.
And apologized to Dukakis, and even apologized to Willie Horton, and would not probably, I guess he would now, I mean, if he had, you know, after that, during that period when he was sick, he would call it dirty tricks, but I don't think George W. Bush would say that's what they bonded on. I think he would say that he was a fighter, and that politics is about fighting, and a good fight is what it, you know, all that stuff, and also that the guys we interviewed who were involved in the right in Florida said, look, we decided the Democrats were going to lie, cheat, and steal to steal this election, and we had to act first. So there is that kind of preemptive strike philosophy, and a lot of it has evolved since the Nixon years, I think, when it's just become increasingly partisan. And what's inspiring about people like Obama, and even McCain, I think some would say, but especially Obama, seems to be gaining popularity because he's denouncing that. And one can only hope that that type of discourse becomes less popular through this election as it proceeds.
And also, we were talking earlier about the way in which you ended recount, and the notion that maybe you were saying that you had a consideration for the end?
Well, we wondered if we should have some sort of call to action or some sort of, you know, there was a study after, in 2001, that a number of media outlets got together to recount the votes again a year later and to figure out who really won. And that's what that shot is all about, in a way, is that the answer really only exists in those stacks of ballots, because by the time they tried to count, there were like 2,000 of them missing. Some standards showed that Bush would have won. Some standards showed that Gore would have won. Mostly, it got reported that if you recounted it, Bush would have won after 9/11, because that's when all the study came out. But if you read down in those articles, they all said if you recounted overvotes and undervotes and all discernible votes, Al Gore would have won by something like 160 votes, or somewhere between 60 and 160, even by the most conservative standards. So you know, we had the opportunity to put that in, but we thought, well, that's going to become the headline of the movie, and instead we'd rather just have people watch the movie, go and look it up, do their own research, figure it out, and not try to preach some final conclusion, because the answer is nobody really knows, and it lies somewhere in that history.
Laura, are you a different citizen now by having gone through this project?
I believe I am. I believe I'm a different citizen based on films that have a voice in you know, cultural satire and political truth, and I was fortunate enough to be raised on them in the 70s, and they were actually the movies that made money too. I mean, they were, you know, hugely successful films that people waited in line to see, and we were so blessed to have them, and I think they inspired so many of us, as well as documentary film. So just merely that they exist is such great news. But particularly for me, I have to admit, despite being raised in a very passionate liberal political household that believes in voice to the death, I became very apathetic. Not that I wouldn't vote, but that I felt like a conspiracy theorist that somehow knew, despite my efforts, that somehow somebody was going to take it from me. I was very disillusioned by 2000, and I figured I would go through some form of post-traumatic stress working on the film, but in fact, I felt reinvigorated, prouder about the potential of what the process could be for Americans. Proud to take my son during the primary and just show him how it should work. and I feel really excited by people who come up to me having seen the film, who say, oh, it's so depressing, or whatever their experience for themselves was to walk through it again. They always end with, I can't wait to vote in November. And I just think, as Obama has so revealed, there are people coming out, you know, in just unparalleled numbers in this country. And so the feeling I had watching the film as a viewer and working on it as an actor was, may it never come down to one state and 130 votes again, so that they can't lie, cheat, and steal, whoever the they is. And it really excited me.
Let me call on this gentleman back here.
Okay, to what extent could you, at this point, predict the political film or TV series of a year from now? It seems that, are you going to wait for the issues or whatever events there may be to unfold? Because it seems how you all did expertly. I saw all the material you've done, but it seems that there's that theme of uncertainty, whether it's Katherine Harris or Robert Kennedy or Richard Nixon, people just trying to figure out who they're all about and trying to convince themselves. Is that theme, or the themes that have been in other political films up until now, enough to have you have an idea whether it's Obama or McCain, the basic themes that might be about them in a couple of years? Do you already have the idea in mind of what those characters might be about?
Do any of you have a specific intention to be doing further political films? I don't know that you necessarily do.
It's hard to. I'm not sure exactly. I know what you mean about what the short-term story. I mean, I learned to love on this, but I've been involved in other political stories too. One of the stories that I'm involved in is Deep Throat, the Mark Felt story, which was the kind of Rashomon of, or will be, I hope, another view of the Watergate situation now that we now know who Deep Throat was. But again, that's not about what I think you're talking about. Is what's the new dynamic that's on us now that will be portrayed in films in the near future? I think no. I don't see how I don't have a way to predict what the news story is going to be.
I would agree. I don't think there's a way to know personally, but from my perspective, I'm excited and hopeful that a conscious shift toward the truth in politics informs what actors will be capable of doing in film, even if the story is about struggle in marriage. Because the most political film anyone can make is, in its own way, about people recognizing themselves in each other, because we've so lost what the truth looks like, even within ourselves. And so I'm excited about future roles and archetypes that our children will be raised on that reveal truth. I mean, particularly, not only, which unfortunately the story that he had to walk through so closely, but the last 8 years has given us a real muddied understanding of what lies and truth look like. And I think this country started to lose sight of what authentic people look like, or authentic presentations. And so hopefully it will break open more room to be harder hitting. By the way, even reality TV's doing that. I mean, I'm sorry to admit it, but the other day someone was saying, oh, isn't it just horrible reality television? It's just, I mean, for actors and for filmmakers in the area of television, it's potentially devastating. At the same time, when I did Citizen Ruth, for those of you who saw it, I mean, not that many people wanted to go see that movie because they were like, oh, just give us some Bruce Willis or some nice, heroes, and the bad guys get locked away. Who is that person? And she's every night on television, whatever show you watch, man, Biggest Loser, Intervention. I mean, Ruth will be there in some form. That's the gal that we all live next door to.
Yeah, that's great.
She's on crystal meth just hanging out on your TV on NBC.
Yeah.
So as actors, we're going to have a lot of fun roles to play that people aren't going to be afraid to see because they're used to seeing what America really looks like.